And we've seen the reception for President Bola Tinubu in Brazil. Elaborate. Let's start with that. How do you feel being in Nigeria or being one of the leaders working with the president at this time?
It is indeed historic and unprecedented. I was there when Mr. President was received by the President of Brazil and the diplomatic community. It is really something of pride to Nigeria, to the National Assembly, to all Nigerians, that Nigeria is being accorded the kind of prestige, image, and integrity that we saw in Brazil. This is truly a strategic partnership that I believe at the end of the day will take both the two countries to a higher pedestal. No doubt, when you look at the body language of the president as well as the economic community of Brazil and Nigerians, that this historic visit is going to be a game changer for all the two countries.
Okay, sir.
He is truly doing the right thing. He is doing extremely well in selling Nigeria to the international world. And you cannot get it wrong, because all the fundamentals that every country needs to actually put in place to attract foreign investments, Nigeria within the last 2 years have been able to attend. So we are a virgin country now, ready to accept investment from all over the world, and Mr. President is doing so well in actually showcasing what Nigeria can offer to the international world and what Nigeria also requires from other countries to support our economy. Mr. President is doing very well. I want to use this opportunity to urge him to continue. This is where Nigeria needs to actually head in the next 2 years, and I believe that we have not seen the best of this administration if this kind of initiatives are maintained over the next 2 years.
Well, the milestone achieved by the original President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, most of his shuttles abroad have started paying dividends for the good of our nation. Today, the bilateral air services agreement has been signed between both countries, Brazil and Nigeria. And I'm sure you heard when President Lula of Brazil said that Nigeria's largest carrier, AIRPEACE, has been designated to implement this BASA by running scheduled flight operations into and out of Brazil to Nigeria. So it's a milestone in the sense that the connectivity is something long overdue, and our dear president has made it possible for this to come into fruition today. It will open up both economies. The Brazilian economy is the largest in Latin America. The Nigerian economy is the largest in Africa. So both countries are very rich, both in human and natural resources. They need to tap into this. But without aviation, it will be very, very difficult for some of these things to be actualized. You know, aviation is a catalyst for further development. And today is a significant milestone that has been achieved. And we are very glad about it.
In terms of actual operations, when do we hope for you to start fully? When should Nigeria expect?
Yeah, we are looking forward to starting at about towards the last week of November into December this year.
How many flights a week?
We cannot start daily flights for now, but we want to start with three weekly flights. That's 3 flights a week for the time being. But as we go on, we develop the route and we can increase the frequency.
As in Abuja, what's the Sao Paulo? Let's just be specific.
We told the Brazilians that we want to do Lagos, Lagos, Rio, Sao Paulo, then and back to Lagos like that. That's taking people, going to both cities and dropping people in both cities before coming back to Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir, after yesterday's engagement, what are the key takeaways, the benefits of this visit?
Quite a number of takeaways. I think the first one is the fact that what has become passive over the years and the decades we've had the president that has had the presence of mind and the commitment and the political will to reawaken and restart this process. That's President Bola Tinubu. And we did hear President Lula da Silva actually make reference to that at the press briefing, saying some 2 decades ago this was started and then nothing happened. And he was wondering why. We have so many commonalities, we share opportunities, and I think so. At the point we are now, I think the major takeaway is that we have Nigeria and Brazil back at the table. But more importantly, you have two leaders who have been forged in the crucible of democratic struggle. President Bola Tinubu was jailed for challenging military dictatorship. Lula da Silva, because of the internal politics of this country, was jailed for over 1.5 years. These are democratic soldiers. They understand what it means that democracy without development comes to nothing. So we've come to a point in our history as a country, or for both countries, where I have leaders who are propelled by the same desires for development, the same desires to empower their people, the same desire to use the resources of their country to be able to push forward the South-South cooperation. And I think that's the major takeaway for me. But then there's a couple of other low-hanging fruits. We see the agricultural mechanization that has been on since 2019, now restarted this year under President Bola Tinubu. We see the cultural exchange been coming up. And I think the biggest is the direct flight, the BASA that was signed under the aviation. And you look at the 5 MOUs signed yesterday. They were very strategic. One for funding in agriculture, our Bank of Agriculture and the International Bank for Development from this country. That's the first MOU. The BASA, aviation, very, very critical. Science and technology. This country's rise, this country's ability to lead the South, this country's position as the largest economy in Latin America was buoyed and supported by science and technology. And when we were at the Binational yesterday, the woman in charge, she spoke about how markets have opened up, the genetics market and several other markets for this economy, and inviting Nigeria to say, this market is open for you, come join us in this market so we can go forward. So I think the MOUs were key, 5 of them, when you look at the others that have come before under the Binational Commission. And going forward, I think if we're able to set up a task force that will take this forward, the immediate benefits will start. Already tomorrow, we know there's an AIRPEACE flight going to Abuja tomorrow. We know that in another 1 or 2 weeks, Lagos and Sao Paulo will just be a dash, 8 hours, 8.5 hours. These are major open skies between two countries. I think we're seeing a new vista that will energize the effort and the reform started by Mr. President in terms of diversification, in terms of opportunities for our young people. Their skills program in this country is one of the best. An MOU was signed yesterday. Another one will be signed. Smidan is here, Naseni is here. So the youth of our country already should be happy that this president is breaking the frontiers for them, not just resources within our country, but also networking across the Atlantic for the benefit of our young people. That was a long one.
Let's break it down a little bit for us. Nigerians back home are very expectant. For example, in the aviation sector, we've talked about...
What's an MOU? It's a memorandum of understanding. That these two parties have an understanding that they have commonalities, they have assets, they have strengths they want to leverage on. And where one is weak, the strength of another lifts it up. So we have an aviation industry in Brazil, Latin America, that's clearly more developed than ours. But also, the partnership we have now is open skies, direct flight. We all flew here. We had 3 stops, a cumulative 19 to 21 hours. We all know that going back will take us 2.5 to 3 days. Now, that has changed. That's the power of an MOU. There's an understanding, a partnership where there are responsibilities on both sides. There are also benefits. That will improve trade, tourism. Investors will be willing to get on the plane from Lagos to come here. They can go back in another day. That's important. The other MOU we signed is on science and technology. This country has a science and technology ministry that permits agriculture, that permits automobile, that permits medicine. Based on the researches and findings, they are able to develop even their seeds. So they now share some of this knowledge with some of this technology with our own departments and agencies as concerned. So support coming from both sides. We also have the International Bank for Development in Brazil signing an agreement with our Bank of Agriculture. And simply stated, just look at the GIP, 1.1 billion. It's focused on agri-mechanization. Look at the potentials already. 10,000 direct jobs, 5 million indirect jobs, 50,000 farming implements, and 10,000 tractors. Massive, isn't it? Now, you look at the Marco Polo buses, those massive buses for transportation, they're produced in this country. Look at the Combi buses. 50 years ago, the strongest, they're still produced there. Now they will start producing CNG-enabled buses. We've seen the chairman of presidential CNG initiative is here already. So when you look around, you have the key agency leads here. And in the last 3 days, we've seen them just fan out, not just hanging around somewhere. We've seen them go to Sao Paulo. We've seen them go to sites. I'm going to be going with the Naseni executive vice chairman today to go and look at what they're doing when it comes to solar energy, mechanized agriculture, and farm implements. So for me, I think that you look at AGOA. AGOA is African Growth and Opportunity Act. Is going to come to an end by the time we get to the United Nations in September. What then comes to Africa? Nigeria is not sitting on its hands. It's saying, let us look at the South-South cooperation. Nigeria, the largest population on the continent on this side. South America, that is Brazil, the largest in Latin America. You look at the population size, 220 million, 212 million. So a lot of complementarities. And we see the South-South coming together. There was something that President Lula da Silva said yesterday, which was significant for me. He said Nigeria already has all it takes to be a full member of BRICS. Considering, of G20, is it G20? Yes. G20. Considering that it's coming from someone who is a key player, you can see that in 2 years, President Bola Tinubu has not only turned the radar of the global community on Nigeria in a positive sense, but that sense of the fact that you have a leader with a vision is not enough to have a vision. You must have the political will to drive your vision through. We have all of that present in this president, and the world is taking notice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm sure next time.
So, would like to have your takeaway from this engagement with during President Bola Tinubu's state visit to Brazil. What are your key takeaways?
Thank you very much. I can say that this very important invitation by President Lula da Silva of Brazil to President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria is one of the most important bilateral discussions and agreements signed since President Bola Tinubu was elected as the President of Nigeria about 2 years ago. And of course, you will agree with me that we have been to many countries before Brazil, had series of agreements, but I'm more optimistic about this very important visit for many factors, because of many factors. Number one, President Lula da Silva is someone who certainly, I can say that he has a lot of faith and belief that Nigeria, as one of the leading economies in Africa, and Brazil as the largest economy in Latin America, have many things in common. And from what he has discussed with our president since our arrival in the last 2 days to today, he was extremely optimistic And of course, we discussed many areas of collaboration, partnership, and about 5 important bilateral agreements and MOUs were signed yesterday. And from the conversation we had with both leaders, we are optimistic that this time around, most of the opportunities we lost in the past. Recall that about 12 years ago, there was a similar conversation between the previous governments and Brazilian government. Discussions were held around about $12 billion opportunities between Nigeria and Brazil, but unfortunately, after 12 years, only about $2 billion was actually realized in the area of investment opportunities between Nigerian government and Brazil, as well as other private investors. But today I'm happy from what we discussed during bilateral meetings. We're looking at over $30 billion investment in the area of agriculture and food security, in the area of aviation investment, and bilateral in the area of airspace between Nigeria and Brazil. We also signed an agreement, an MOU, in the area of diplomacy, in the area of research, which has to do with science, technology, and innovation, which centers around skill development, around digital economy, and as well as also area of research. But of course, one of the areas I believe we can do a lot in the area of renewable energy and energy generally, because these were the areas that were abandoned in the past, and the Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, made it clear that because of the current United States tariff regime, which of course you'll agree with me that about 40% was what the USA have put on Brazil in the area of tariff. But of course, every country around the globe is looking for opportunities. That's why some of us are very happy that President Bola Tinubu have been the one leading Nigerians' effort toward trying as much as possible to drive investment, create opportunities to Nigeria. And of course, because of what he has done in the last 2 years, particularly stabilizing the economy of Nigeria, because of the reforms he established. I want to make one example or two. When he came in, a lot of foreign investors were not willing to come to Nigeria because there were a lot of backlog in the area of forex. No serious investor will come to Nigeria and invest if he cannot repatriate his investment and repatriate his own profits. But paying about $7 billion by the central bank to clear the backlog was what really certainly increased the confidence of investors, not only those coming to Nigeria, even those within Nigeria. For me, it was a major obstacle. Liberalization of our forest, trying to see that President came with policy to eliminate the multiple exchange rate, is what also gave a lot of investors confidence to invest in Nigeria. Because nobody will come to a country when you cannot wake up in the morning and certainly invest and know the position of the forex in the country. Because in the past, there were a lot of problems around forex in Nigeria. Nobody can invest and certainly be hopeful of getting his investment back. And another area that I believe Mr. President have done well is in the area of removal of fuel subsidy, which was extremely very important because that has eliminated a lot of corruption. And that's the reason why a lot of companies that has to do with energy, including Brazil here, are optimistic of coming back to Nigeria, because you cannot come to a country where you cannot be able to have freedom when it comes to issue of investment, particularly in the energy sector. We have to certainly look at what happened globally, and that was what was missing in Nigeria. So Mr. President Bola Tinubu have come with a lot of very important reforms that have stabilized our economy. That was the reason why some of us were optimistic when he was coming to Brazil. And of course, both President Bola Tinubu and President Lula da Silva have many things in common. They are people that believe in their countries. just like President Lula da Silva has made it clear to all of us. Both of them believe in democracy, believe in the rule of law, believe in ensuring that the economy can only be said to be successful if the downtrodden, small businesses are carried along. And that's the reason why both of them have similar history. President Lula da Silva was someone who fought for democracy and entrenched democracy in Brazil, just like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was in the trenches. He fought for democracy in Nigeria, spent many years entrenching democracy in Nigeria. So there are many things in common. And look at our population. Brazil has about 240 million population. Nigeria is about 230 million. So we have a lot of human resources, young population that can quickly adapt to these very important agreements and certainly take advantage. And of course, something that for me I feel is really, really important is the fact that for the first time, I've seen a country that are willing and ready to open their own opportunities for Nigeria. And of course, this opportunity to allow airlines to travel straight from Brazil to Nigeria is very important. For instance, some of us coming to Brazil, some of us took about 20 hours to be here. Some even 22 hours after many stoppage in many countries before coming to Brazil. But of course, with this opportunity, with this bilateral, with these MOUs, you can leave Brasilia or Sao Paulo or Rio and get to Lagos or Abuja within 7.5 hours. For me, is key, because you cannot encourage investment if you don't have opportunities in aviation, rail lines, infrastructure. That is the reason why we're supporting President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And what he's doing is also helping us at the level of subnationals. Because when we came in, a state like Kaduna, that I always say our workforce is about 60% agriculture, 43% of our GDP is agriculture. And of course, we also leverage on this very important visit to sign MOUs and agreements with other people, particularly some companies, some investors in the area of livestock, which for me is key, because the agreement in agriculture between Nigerian government and Brazilian government has opened up many other areas, particularly the livestock. Because if you look at Brazil, they are leading country in the area of export in beef, particularly because yearly they export about 200,000 metric tons of beef globally. The only country next to them is Argentina with 50,000 metric tons. And of course, in Nigeria, I have no doubt in my mind, with the establishment of Ministry of Livestock, Mr. President have really helped not only the federal government, but subnational. And anything that has been done here in the area of agriculture, for me, certainly subnational will be the #1 beneficiaries, because we own the land. The president is only helping us to have the opportunities, because federal government don't own any land. We own the land. We are the ones to benefit. And that's the reason why with a lot of resources coming to state, because of most of these policies that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has just initiated in the last 2 years, I have no doubt in my mind state governors will seize opportunity and try as much as possible to create jobs, improve productivity, address the issue of poverty, and for me, that is what is key at the moment.
Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you.